Look at this thing. Watch.
Put me down.
He's pissed.
Let me go.
Let's see what he does in the water.
He's gonna dig back in. See
Footing
him
around,
going?
yeah.
You ruined his morning, Brad.
Oh, big thing. He had a good thing going.
There he
Wow.
goes.
See you, buddy.
It's incredible.
It's amazing.
This is the best thing we've ever shot. Wait till I pluck him out. He's gonna be so pissed.
Dude, let me go.
We'll let him go. They say good things come in small packages, and with tin fish, I certainly agree. I always thought there was something incredibly satisfying about that compact, perfectly complete can. From the beautiful design on the outside to the protein-dense little meal inside. Today I want to introduce you to a company that started tinning seafood a full decade before it was a trend on TikTok. Island Creek Oysters of Duxbury, Massachusetts. Island Creek was founded by this guy, Skip Bennett, lifelong resident of the area.
I always joke if Skip won the lottery, he'd just come out here and farm oysters every day and
Nothing would change.
get rid of his cell phone.
That sounds great. Together with his protege and now CEO, Chris Sherman, their operation has earned a reputation for producing the highest quality, sustainably grown oysters, clams, scallops, lobsters, and caviar. So why get into canning? Well, there's a lot more to love about tinned fish than its beautiful packaging. First, it's more energy efficient. Canned fish can safely last for years in a warehouse or in your pantry. Second, it's more affordable. A gourmet tin of oysters isn't going to be cheap, but it's definitely going to be cheaper than oysters on a half shell. Third, it reduces food waste. Fresh seafood has a very short shelf life. According to the UN, about a quarter of all fish is thrown away. Why let those fish die in vain when we can can them? Fourth, it makes quality seafood available year-round. Clams, for example, are the most plump and delicious when they're harvested in chilly months. Well, now you can enjoy perfect plump clams on the 4th of July. Fifth, it's versatile. Eat them solo or use them as an ingredient. Different producers season and prepare their seafood in all kinds of delicious ways. So, seafood lovers, join me for a day with Island Creek. First, out on the water, where they seed the shellfish. Then we'll head to the cannery to make a test batch of my mackerel recipe. Ooh. What the heck is going on over here?
Show me around town, yeah. Show me all the good spots. Local legend. Local legend.
Ready?
Oh, came on.
Beautiful day. Thanks again for having us. I mean, the drive alone out here was, I was like a little kid, man. It's a blast just getting here. I ain't getting stuck today. With Duxbury Bay?
Yes, Duxbury Bay. We're actually in the town of Plymouth right now. That's where this farm is, but it's all Duxbury, Plymouth Bay.
So this is an island.
Essentially, at high tide, on an extreme high tide, it's separated from the mainland.
But that way we came in is the only way.
That's it, yeah.
car or boat.
By boat, yeah. I love the fact that every day it's something different. The challenges are different. Even the tides change an hour every day. 4 o'clock in the morning, and the next day it's 5. Really fell in love with the physical work, the independence of being on the bay.
Not a bad office.
Not a bad office.
All right.
Let's give it a go.
Do you have a son, Brad?
Yeah, 2 of them, 8 and 6.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, little lunatics.
Yeah, I bet. That's
Little
awesome.
domestic terrorists. House destroyers. Get pretty big tides out here then.
Yeah. We'll have 8 to 10 feet at high tide.
Oysters back here?
Oysters back here, clams, some specialty oysters that we float on the surface.
I mean, you guys just farm all through these waters here or just this spot?
We have several spots. This is one of our farms. It actually is very different kind of flavor profile and how they grow out here and how they look. So a lot of terroir happening out
Yeah,
here.
I like that. We're standing on some of you guys' clam beds.
Skip's the clam guy.
I'm the clam guy.
What's the grid? What's the net?
These are, there's baby clams under here. There's about 20,000 under each net. So there's over 1 million under these nets. You want to see some?
Yeah.
There's 3 sections of rebar on both sides just to hold the net down. The rebar sinks into the mud. With the farms, we can control when they go to market, as opposed to the wild fishery where people are going out and catching the clams and trying to keep the product moving. You know, we plant these beds on a site that we have a license for, so we have the exclusive right to the shellfish on this site. We can bring those clams to market at the most advantageous time for us.
This always feels like shooting fish in a barrel to me. You roll the net back, and
I know.
it's like going clamming, except there are clams everywhere.
Break them up, boys. Yeah. How old do you think the clams are in this bed?
These are about 8 months old.
So how big is that? We just dig them?
Take a look.
Oh yeah. What kind of clam is that? Like a manila?
No, they're little necks.
They have that color like that?
Yeah,
when they're small?
we breed them for it.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, there's a genetic variation. It exists in the wild. We just select for it because it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
How do you get them all in here?
So they all start in our hatchery, like January, February, and about May, we sprinkle them on the ground. They dig themselves in. We know what density we want them at, and then we roll nets out and pin the nets down to protect them from predators, but also to keep them in place.
Right.
You know, in big storms, they would blow out of the bottom.
Well, what's a baby clam look like in that early stages?
For months, they're small enough that we have to look at them under a microscope. So, you know, we bring people out and they look at the clams at this size and they say, oh, they're so small. And in the back of my mind thinking, these are huge.
Baby razor.
Yep.
Dude, it was one of my favorite clams.
Full of spunk and vitality there.
Is that just something that was naturally here?
Yeah, the nets actually will attract other shellfish. It's one of the reasons why aquaculture is so good.
Life attracts life. Was that a little green crab?
Uh-oh,
Get them out.
that's the enemy.
Yeah, he was happy in there, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Invasive.
Yeah, if the crab was bigger or the seed was smaller.
They'll chew these things up?
They will, yeah.
See you, buddy.
See ya. Watch out for the seagulls.
That's his problem now.
Get him out of there.
Put him in the sauce pot.
We do at
They're
the
delicious,
Windsor
yeah.
House. We make a broth out of them.
Scourge of the seafloor.
Eat them all. Everything you can get.
The big thing is the nets protect them. And out here, one of our biggest predators is moon snails. They're a carnivorous snail.
Moon snails.
Just brutal.
Real bad way to die.
And for
sounds
some
like.
reason out here, it's like a moon snail nursery.
The real question is, have you tried to eat them yet?
No, maybe we should tin them.
Little escargot.
Yeah.
I used to think they're really cool, and then I watched one eat a clam once, and I'm terrified. Like,
Oh, it
haunts
sounded
my
like a
nightmares.
freaking sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worse than it sounds too. Like they pump in some kind of enzyme that kills the clam.
Or at least they pump it with enzymes.
I think the enzymes just like break down the meat.
Just melt them alive.
Even a hard shell can't stop the well-equipped moon snail, which can drill right through.
Yeah, nature's brutal.
Yeah.
I got some babies for you here, Brad, too.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna check your pockets before you leave.
Yeah, I'm already seeing these in like a big old sauteed pan of linguine.
That's like
talking
$5
about.
worth of clams right there.
You know?
Or in a tin.
Yeah.
Just little clams.
They would be good in the tin, huh?
Yeah, maybe.
Little toothpickers?
Yeah. Isn't that the cool part about tins? Like it gets you thinking that like the sky's the limit in terms of like
Let's put it in a tin. Let's give it a shot.
let's do a lobster.
Those little bay scallops you guys do.
Yeah.
Delicious. I'm obsessed with tin products.
I think a lot of people are. Not mainstream yet, but I think enough people are super passionate about it that it will become a mainstream.
Yeah, well, it
Food
used to be, right? I mean, like tin sardines got a lot of people through some hard times.
We hear now that there's people like, oh, I get together with my buddies and we each try to bring like a kind of obscure tin, and instead of a charcuterie board, they have tins.
Well, these ones are a bit small for harvest then. Right?
Yeah.
Well, let's say we dig up some ones that we can bring back. Maybe have a couple on the half shell later, maybe a
Great.
cocktail. Put me to work, get
I
the
got a
rake.
spot. Let's go.
Huh. That razor clam was cool.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
So this little area right here might have some clams in it.
Rumor says.
Just gently work the digger in.
Wow, there you go.
There's one.
That's about, what do you say, 3 years?
There's another one. Yeah, those are 3 years. Those are, you said you wanted some half shells.
Oh, these are beautiful, yeah.
So those are kind of perfect size for the half shell.
That was the easiest
dude.
clam that I
Yeah.
ever seen, huh?
You're
Heck
up.
yeah. The beauty of farming. Oh yeah, we're loaded up in here, bud.
He's a natural.
Yeah. God, you got a nose for it, Brad.
Dude, you got any downtime you want to come work, let me know.
We'll see how these videos go the next few years. I might be a little tall. I'll be the guy, I'll be 60 years old like this. Clamming, that's tough work. They say it's a young man's game, but every commercial clammer I know is 60 years old, has 10 thumbs, and it's like he crawled out of the ocean himself.
That was the appeal of farming, was hopefully I wasn't going to be that 60-year-old guy with 10 thumbs.
You grew up out here?
We both grew up in Duxbury and both spent a lot of time on the water growing up. My dad was a lobsterman. Probably would have followed in his footprints, but I get seasick.
Yeah, me too.
So I don't swim very well. So for the most part out here, when you fall over, you can stand up.
Seasick, can't swim. Not
Yeah.
great lobsterman.
No, I shellfished when, in high school. I heard about some guys out on the Cape that were growing clams. So I was hooked. My first year was 1991. That was the perfect storm.
Right.
100-year storm, they said. Ironically, in 1992, there was another 100-year storm. So I figured I was good for 200 years.
Right.
5 years in, got wiped out by a parasite. Probably should have given up then, but I got some oyster seed, which wasn't really an obvious because there were no wild oysters here in Duxbury.
Growing up, did you know Skip growing up?
Yeah. I was.
He's a ledge.
He was a legend. I was a water rat. I used to take my boat across to work at the boatyard in Plymouth.
Damn, I wish I grew up with you, man. We'd have been buddies.
It was good. And then I got to know Skip because I started a little like wood refinishing. It was called Partners in Grime Power Washing. Dirty decks done dirt cheap. And my partner was one of the first people to work for Skip on the farm. So
cool.
that's how I got to know Skip. I would steal ice out of the cooler at the
borrow.
Park Street shop and borrow the occasional tool or ladder or something like that.
Did he bring the tools back?
No.
No.
Still waiting on
I
them.
still don't.
Classic water rat.
I sailed professionally. I worked for boat builders. My then girlfriend, now wife, was kind of sick of traveling all over the world all the time. Skip had already done all the hard work getting the farm going. So I called up Skip and got a gig working on the farm.
The classic. Grew up in a great place. Couldn't wait to leave, and then came back because it's perfect.
That's it. We call it the boomerang.
All right. Love that. Working with Skip don't sound too bad either.
Nope.
Catch him on a
Most
good
of the time.
It's got its really good days.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting to leave.
Yeah.
It's a couple more bucks and I'm out of here.
Nice.
Oh, gorgeous.
How many do you think we need, Chris?
10 or 12 a tin, so
10 or 12 of those in a tin?
yeah.
Really?
I think.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, when they go
cook
through,
down,
they
they
shrink
shrink
down a
out?
bit, so.
Uh-oh.
Last dig.
Wah, wah.
Ditch the leverage, that's all. Show goes on.
Is that a new rake, Skip?
Yeah, it was.
I don't think I've ever seen a hand clam rake that didn't have a questionable handle.
Yeah.
Ever. I'm just strong, that's all.
That's
it.
all.
All right, let me give these a little rinse.
Great.
There's old Willie. What the hell you doing, Willie? What's it look like I'm doing? I want to be Willie. Come on there, Willie. He don't like you, Bob. Can't believe these are 3 years old.
Yeah, we're always wanting more clams. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
You have to be patient to be a clam farmer.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. So when you see like a big old one,
Yeah, those can be 30 to 50 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
what's it take to get to just like a market size oyster?
Oysters actually grow really quickly, like 18 months on average to market size. When you take 1 million out of the hatchery, they're like the size of a flake of pepper. They weigh about 2 pounds.
1 million?
Yeah, and they
Wow.
fit in your 2 hands. And 18 months later, they'll completely cover 1 acre and weigh about 200,000 pounds.
Wow.
So the growth is just phenomenal, and the volume change is really the challenge for the oyster farmers. How do we protect them to grow that volume?
Willie. Hi, buddy. Best life, Willie Nelson. By the way, guys, this is Dan.
Hey, what's up, Dan? Brad.
Dude, barefoot in October, buddy.
Love it.
It's amazing.
So what, Chris, what do you guys, what's going on here?
In all these trays, we've got different age classes.
Okay.
So there's some that are seed. These are market size.
And when they get exposed in the air like that, they're fine. They
Yeah,
just-
they basically clamp closed, and like the thing that no one realizes about oysters is like if you buy a piece of fish, it's dead
Right.
from the moment it gets cut. Whereas if you get oysters shipped to your house, or if you're eating them at a restaurant, they're alive that whole process, and they basically just clamp closed and they live on the liquor, we call it, the salt water in their shell. When they get exposed by the tide, they do the same thing. The nice part about that is it builds up the adductor muscle, the little thing that opens and closes the shell. That muscle gives a really nice sweet finish to the oysters.
the scallop of the oyster.
Yeah, it is exactly what it is. They're a little more of a strong flavor than, say, the island creeks or the rose, which are grown on the other side of the island. This tidal exposure, different exposure to like the northeast breeze, that all makes a huge difference in the flavor and like ultimately the character, the way the oyster looks and the texture of the meat and everything like that. This has been a really good site for us. And then this is grown in gear, which is the other big thing. So these are protected, but the downside is all these oysters have to come out in the winter. They go into the cellar in Skip's cottage. It's like a root cellar.
Yeah.
And that's where they stay, and they just hibernate right in
And they're
there.
good.
It's a little oyster trick.
Yeah.
Once they get down to around 36, 38 degrees, they're completely dormant. And as long as the humidity's high and the temperature is below 50 degrees, they can stay in there for months.
So they're zippered up so they don't even know if they're in water or not.
That's right. They're essentially hibernating, so
Right.
their heart beats like once every 10 minutes.
Survivors.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I'm sure probably, you know, the Native Americans would have had root cellars, and one year we're like, wait a minute, these are still alive in the spring, and figured it out.
Yeah, you get smart quick.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. Still waiting on that one.
Root cellar in oysters and building a cannery. Island Creek oyster, keeping old traditions alive.
Yeah. In the 50s and 60s, there were 2 diseases that wiped out the oysters on the East Coast. So most oysters on the East Coast are farmed. And so this is a typical oyster farm. These oysters have started in a hatchery, protected until they're big enough to survive the elements and also the predators. At that point, they go into these trays, and you can see there's thousands of trays here. Each one has maybe 500 to 600 per side, so there are literally millions of oysters out here. But it's a lot of work of going through, picking out the market size ones, protecting the ones that aren't quite big enough, and making sure the densities are right. There's a lot of challenges, regulatory challenges, to harvest and still be in compliance with FDA regulations.
As far as structure, do you see that kind of like builds of diversity in ecosystem?
Yeah, there's 2 big things that the shellfish farms do. One is they create habitat. So we actually just studied with the Nature Conservancy a couple years ago, and they put underwater cameras in to see marine life around the farm. It's actually providing nursery for species like striped bass. Structure helps a lot. And then the other thing that it does is all of these shellfish filter and clean 30, 40, 50 gallons of water every day.
Each shellfish?
Each one. They're immensely powerful. And what they're doing is they're eating algae, because if you get too much algae, you've heard of harmful algal blooms, you know, there's nitrogen that runs off the land, the water gets thick with algae. So having all the shellfish here, not only is the structure an advantage, but they're cleaning the water the whole time they're there too. Probably the craziest thing for me is in the hatchery. You can really see it because the hatchery team will dump a bunch of microalgae into a tank.
To feed them.
Even with the larvae, you can barely see that they're microscopic.
Yeah.
And the water gets all murky, it looks like, you know, a swamp. You come back 2 hours later and the water's crystal clear.
Wow.
The biggest threat to a bay like this is nitrogen loading.
And most of that nitrogen coming from just agriculture.
Mostly it's coming from lawn fertilizer. Functional septic systems leach a lot of nitrogen.
Wow.
So, you know, humans living around the water.
Everyone asks, like, oh, if the oysters are cleaning the water, why are the oysters clean? The nitrogen is not a contaminant. It's a pollutant because it throws the water chemistry out of balance.
Right. One of the great things is that we have about a 12-foot exchange of tide. So where we're standing, we would be fully underwater.
Wow.
Yeah, at high tide, the boats rip by. They don't even know that all of this is here.
So these are anchored to the bottom.
You know,
They're
the
sitting
weight
on
holds
the
them down. Yeah. You know, the tide comes in about 2 feet every hour.
Wow.
Which is great for the oysters because the
They're
flow
feeding.
brings the new water, more nutrients past them. Where we are out here, it's really cold. Cape Cod Bay ocean water. So they grow slower, but they're a beautiful oyster out here.
Eating well.
Eating well,
Happy
yeah.
oysters.
Yep.
Happy dog too.
Happy dog. He doesn't stop.
He's living his best life.
Who doesn't want to be Willie? How'd you get into canning?
I think we have a penchant for doing things the hard way. So I think the cannery definitely is an unfinished story at this point, but the way we got into it was really, I had gone to Europe and really enjoyed kind of tin fish over there.
Like Spain, Portugal?
Spain, France, you know, a little bit Portugal.
Tin fish have been around
Huge.
for forever.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's Napoleon's army as the technology was invented.
Let's rewind real quick for a brief history of canning. The year, 1800. The place, France. The impending wars, Napoleonic. Okay. So when the Grande Armée was gearing up to take over Europe, the French government offered up a 12,000 franc prize to anyone who could come up with a method to preserve food for their huge cavalries, who were tromping around the countryside on foot with food that was always spoiling or going stale. A guy named Nicholas Appert started fooling around with putting fish in glass jars and boiling them at high temperatures. And lo and behold, the fish did not go bad. We didn't even know anything about microbes and bacteria yet, so we had no idea what kind of sorcery was happening there. But our boy Nick won the prize. Spoiler alert, no pun intended, it didn't help Napoleon win the war. The word quickly spread about this food preservation method, and shortly afterwards, British inventor Durant patented a tin can design that was more lightweight and wouldn't break. Still, it involved a lot of manual labor, and Since we hadn't had the Industrial Revolution yet, it wasn't exactly affordable to the masses. For a while, it was mainly used by armies and seafaring explorers on the Arctic expeditions. Eventually, Louis Pasteur, father of germ theory, would discover why canning worked. Because it stopped microbes from growing on the food inside. Hence, pasteurization was born. And as we made improvements in the mechanization through the 1800s, canned food shifted from a novelty among the bougie types to a more affordable option for the middle class. World War I is when the canned food industry finally boomed into popularity, feeding many countries' armies and eventually becoming the staple we know today. From doomsday preppers to gourmet foodies, it's hard to find a household that doesn't have a few tins in the pantry. This water's gonna come flying in, he said. The water's gonna start ripping in. And we gotta get the trucks out of here before we need snorkels.
Before it's an island.
I'm guessing you're not gonna be coming with us to Bedford.
Nope, somebody has to stay here.
Someone's gotta work.
I can't wait to try the mackerel.
That's it, man. Yeah, but we gotta go
look
make it
forward
first.
to
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's perfect. Skip, thanks again, brother. To the cannery. We're gonna get in the kitchen, dabble around some mackerel, try to dial in that recipe that Jay and I and my son Griffin got inspired by up in Maine.
Yep.
We got a recipe and a dream here. You guys are gonna help putting it in a tin, something that we can share with people watching, make it a consumer-safe product.
That's the idea. Today we'll do 30 tins or so just to try it out, but hopefully the next time we're back in action, we're doing 5 or 10,000.
And who are we meeting with up in here?
And this is our kitchen, and we're gonna meet Robert, operations director, really the brains behind the cannery.
Okay,
Also
all right.
happens to be one of the best fish cutters on the East Coast.
Been cutting a lot of fish, man. What do we got here?
These are beautiful Boston mackerel. Been feeding all summer, got their fat content high. That's why the meat's nice and white.
Yeah, gorgeous. A lot bigger than the ones we were catching up in Maine.
You know, one thing that's nice about these mackerel, they're lower trophic fish. They're underutilized, small life cycles, and they're just intended to be fecund and reproduce.
Low mercury, high nutrients, high fat, the good fats.
Yep, the omegas. Yep.
Really a perfect fish. Basically, I was thinking just a little cherry pepper, olive oil, some garlic, maybe a little shallot, little leek, some sun gold from the garden, a couple leaves of peril in there, like
Love that.
chiffonaded in there. Smell this, man. These are just dill seeds. One little secret ingredient, a little shio koji. It's like the base of miso.
Yeah, yeah.
Looked like you did a phenomenal job of cutting them things. I think one of the things we can fool around with is the idea of maybe searing some of the meat, leaving the skin on, and taking some and steaming them, skin off.
Yep.
I think we're off to a good start.
New England summer in a can.
New England summer in a can. A little test run.
A little R&D.
When this happens on a commercial scale, this is a much different operation.
Much different. To be fully suited up with PPE, hairnets, gloves, aprons, everything. There'd be more people in here, more product. So when we come back to actually do the production run, it'll look a lot different than what we're doing today.
Yeah.
This is a jacketed boiler. It's a convection steamer. It's a moist heating source, so they don't dry out.
We steam some, skinless. They're gonna go in the tin. Gonna be delicious. I wanted to try some. The mackerel skin is so nice. Look at that, it's gorgeous. Crisp that up a little bit. I mean, it's not gonna be crispy when you get it, but just put a little bit of flavor on there. Research and development. Yeah, R&D. You can't beat the char. Look at that, come on, that's what I want in there. Chunks of that, let's go. But we'll see, we're testing. Talk to me a little bit about coming up with a recipe and how that gets into something that you put in a can and sell.
What we do is come up with a process that eliminates all of the bacteria in the can. And
Pasteurize it,
it's
essentially.
essentially pasteurizing it.
Things gotta be zippered up. Old technology, but
It's old technology, but it's brand new contemporary standards.
So once it's cooked, the skin pretty much peels right off, and then you've got some pin bones right here that will just come through. There is our workable meat.
how does this really differ from a major commercial cannery?
Most tuna is caught in the Pacific, Indonesia, Thailand, processed, cooked, frozen, and sent by container to the United States factories where it's thawed, punched into a can with a mechanical punch.
Is that how they do it?
Yep. We've been over to Portugal to a 4th generation sardine cannery, and all you see are abandoned canneries. Industries started, globalization started going overseas, and they could produce cheaper. A lot of those Portuguese companies raced to the bottom with them and couldn't compete. We have a little logo on our box that says packed with human hands.
Putting that human element back into it, I think, is pretty massive.
Hey guys, we have a serious leak in this room that I found.
Get out. You're fired. What we're doing now is getting that sauce into a nice smooth consistency, but also trying to emulsify all that olive oil that we got in there. And it's gonna give us that nice kind of golden, velvety yum. I've been wanting mackerel and sun gold for toast my whole life. Give it a taste. Ooh. All right, let's see what you think. Oh, it likes that sauce.
Perfect balance.
More salt, a little more heat.
Maybe a little more heat.
A little more
but
heat.
I think we're good on salt.
Me too.
Oh, hell yeah.
Have a little bite.
Nice.
Tell me what you think.
That was a winner.
It is.
And I'll tell you
it is,
right off
that's-
the bat, seared over steamed any day of the week.
It likes the sauce.
Yep. It just balances it right out.
Oh, I think we're on to something there.
Yeah.
All right, approved.
Woohoo.
Done.
We'll up the heat a little bit. Ship it, send it to production.
Yep. Done. Print it.
Put the protein, then the sauce, and then we'll top it with the oil. It's a density game.
Consistency is key.
Consistency is key. So there's almost perfect natural portion size.
What are we
And,
looking for again?
80 grams.
Can I go skin up?
You can do whatever you want. You're the boss.
Done properly, this thing's not it's not going bad.
It is a sterile product,
Right.
and you can come back to it, years and years and years down the line. We are ready. We're ready to start filling these cans. Your capacity in the can is 120. You've put in 80 grams of protein, so now you go 40 milliliters of oil.
You don't want air in there, I'm
You
assuming.
want no air. You want no oxidation. Joe, you want to do the honors there?
Joe can see him with his eyes closed.
We press down on the lid. When it goes into the seamer, you'll see just a little drop come out, and that is what you're shooting for. If you overfill, you'll have a lot of seepage and it'll get messy.
How you feeling about that fill level there, Joe?
Oh, you're making a mess. That's gonna happen. Yeah.
The most important step in the canning process is the cook. A retort is essentially a giant pressure cooker, and what we have to keep on file to be able to provide to the FDA is this chart here. So this chart will record the 3 stages of the retort process. When you can food, thermophilic bacteria is a concern. We give them 10 days, and if there's any bacteria growth in those cans, the cans will start to swell, and they'll also start to leak. So that's just a holding phase to ensure that our cook process did its job.
Oh, wow, amazing.
A full basket would be 24 layers of 22 cans.
So you run it at the same numbers as if it was full.
Yes. So I'll just hand tighten them up. Same idea as a wheel on a car.
So you do it in like a star pattern?
Exactly. I'm just gonna wait till my clock hits 5:30 and then I'm gonna hit the start. 28 minutes, 252, 5.5 minute cool. We're on B. Ready to go?
Fire in the hole.
Right now, it's really just putting pressure through to get any cold air that was in there out. And once it gets through this first 6 minutes, the venting cycle, it'll be 220 degrees.
Boy, that gets there quick. Beats the stovetop, huh?
It'll get over 252 degrees, and that's when the actual cook cycle starts.
When they're done being cooked in the retort machine, I know there's an incubation period, 10 days.
Yep.
We got to do a little tasting. See how they came out, and we'll take it from there. seeing a dream of mine kind of come to life, you know. Give my thanks again to the gang, from the sea to the tin, from us to you. It's just a lovely thing.
Wait, put it back in. Action.
Sounds like you guys are just getting started with the tin product. You could put anything in there.
Oh yeah,
you know?
we have some wild ideas. For us, it's been really important as we've moved into other categories to maintain that level of connectivity to where this food is coming from.
We were sort of disruptive in the beginning, that seafood was not transparent. You bought it from somebody and you had no idea where it came from, and they wanted it that way because people in that distribution chain didn't want to be cut out.
We've made a commitment early on, like every island creek comes from Duxbury Bay. Because we've seen with the oysters in particular, positive impact it can have in seafaring communities that are trying to find a way in the 21st century to make a relevant living off the ocean. There's environmental benefits, there's economic impact, but now there's this vibrant everyday life here with probably 100+ people working on the bay. That makes it both a much more interesting place, but also one that's connected to the heritage, going all the way back to the Native Americans who lived here. You hear a lot about traceability and fish fraud. Owning the value chain, that's the only way to really ensure that you know we're buying the fish from fishermen, we're canning it ourselves, it's getting processed ourselves, we own the entire thing.
The grower knows where it's going, the chef knows where it came from, and if we're not adding value in that chain, then we shouldn't be in there.
I love tins. I collect the damn things. I literally have hundreds. So it's an absolute honor and joy to make a product of my own with the insanely gracious collaboration with one of my favorite New England seafood pioneers.
I would say we really prioritize doing things that we feel are cool. That's always been the biggest motivator, and Chris has joked around that the cannery was probably a horrible idea, and I don't disagree, but you kind of had to do it. It's really cool.
What are you guys doing? What's going on in there? Still got work to do. Cut.